Hey guys, so I didn't get a chance to prepare for this draft like I have for our past 5 years or whatever, because I had work all day, but I still wanted to like completely geek degen out on fantasy football. So I'm gonna take that chance now by going through and I would say rating, but whatever, just like talking about every pick in this draft up until I don't know around 7 or something until I get bored. First, though, we got to talk about this format. So like in fantasy football, you can just watch a video or read an article or follow some content creator to get their tier lists, right? They're like their ranking, and you don't really have to think about it. Like you can just trust someone who's smarter than you. Um, Now, I mean, there's a lot of players of FPL, but this isn't FPL, right? Like, there's like fucking nobody playing this format where you draft soccer players. So we're in uncharted territory. There are no experts. Yeah, fantasy Premier League. Um, so there's just like less conventional wisdom. The conventional wisdom you can find, like the content creators, they're all specialized towards FPL. The main game where you have a budget. Um, yeah, so there's no experts. I am the expert, so that's why I'm making this video. Um, so yeah, let's talk about the format. So I think the main consequence of having all of these, tackles, interceptions, shots on target, I don't think it's gonna like change, who are the real difference makers, like getting like having Cole Palmer late, like those type of things which win you the league are exactly the same. Like nothing's different about that. If you had Cole Palmer, for free this season, then or whatever on this platform, then you're gonna fucking win the league. Um, what it does do though is it doesn't just like leave you completely shit out of luck if your guy doesn't get a goal but has a decent game. You get a little consolation prize, which is key passes or whatever. I also appreciate that losing the ball is penalized, so you can't just like Doku like fucking dribble merchant isn't just going to be stacking up points, doing all these things which don't create a chance. So I'm glad for that. But Doku's still a good pick. The biggest factor, though, I think is going to be defenders. So in the normal game, it's just about clean sheets, right? Like the auto sub factor plus the fact that the defender is either get a clean sheet or nothing means that it's all you're shooting for. So of course, if you've got time to do this, then you just change up your defenders each week to try to find where the clean sheets are going to be. Um, and soccer's a really random game, so a lot of times it doesn't happen when you think it'll happen, but it still involves some statistical distribution, right? Like the Arsenal and Man City players are getting clean sheets at a higher rate than all the other teams. So those are the players you want in normal FPL. But in this is different. You get points for blocks, for tackles, for interceptions. Now Sleeper doesn't have like the what the scores were for last season and before. I guess just because this is the first year. Um, but I imagine the ranks would be very different. Um, so I mean, you might be looking at my team and be like, "Oh, he picked all Arsenal players. That must mean that's the best strategy to just try to get the clean sheets." But it's really not the case. Like Gabriel and Saliba are guys who got a hell of clean sheets, but they actually don't make a lot of tackles or interceptions, so they're not going to be stacking up points like that. With all that said, let's talk about Haaland. Or let's not, because it's just obviously he's the best. It looks like forwards aren't going to be scoring as much as midfielders because of all of the extra points. That's the other thing I forgot to mention. So, but even with that, forwards are very valuable because of how scarce they are. So we should go 1-on-1. But I do think he's going to be scoring less than this next tier of guys. Do I say next tier? Because I think Salah. So like the drop off from Haaland to Salah is huge, but then the drop off from Salah to the next group of guys in my opinion, is also huge. I thought maybe I could get him at 5 because of how low his ADP was. And I can't see what the ADP is, whatever, maybe I'll look at it later. But this is just from what I remember from the draft, like an hour ago or whatever. Yeah, I thought maybe I could get Salah. But then this next tier of guys, I feel like there's a lot who I would be totally happy with. And like the later you pick in that group, the better. So yeah, Palmer. I mean, it's crazy to see him 3rd overall after last season being undrafted. And I'll not talk anymore about having Palmer last season because it's just cringe. But yeah, he deserves to be up there. So my ranking of these next group of guys, I actually did have Foden at like 3rd overall. Like if I was 103, it's not that I would take him there. It's just that, again, his ADP on this was low. So I thought that I was trying to be greedy and actually get him back at 204. But I guess that was stupid. For reference, the FPL, like his score on FPL, or his price on FPL is 9.5, I think. And the rest of these guys are either 10 or 10.5. So clearly, like, ADP is lower on Foden. So I thought, yeah, maybe I could get him back. But no. And yeah, Saka is probably going to be either top scorer or top assister, probably both on Arsenal, on a team that scores a lot of goals. So that's the obvious one. Son, again, like I think Foden would outscore Son, but I was just like, greed lord. I'm not scared off by them signing Solanke. Like I feel like maybe that could lead to even more goals. Like they're both going to be in the lineup. Foden, like, why shouldn't he be better than last season, where he was Premier League Player of the Season? He got that, right? Yeah, I think he won that award, whatever that's called. Yeah, like there's going to be probably less De Bruyne and more Foden. Just, De Bruyne is a year older. They're, have overlapping roles, if not the same position. So yeah, I think he could easily be the top scorer this season. Trent. It's really hard to say what we should do with Trent because we just have no precedent on the platform. Like we only have precedent for our league and where we've been taking Trent. But I think he should be better in this scoring format just because of all of the attacking contributions. Especially because Trent's like one of those, like a lot of his like good play is not necessarily assists. Especially when you got fucking Nunez messing up chances. So like he'll have key passes. I'm pretty sure he has a lot of key passes. So I don't know. I wouldn't pick him in the first round. Maybe not even the second round, but it could be fine. I'm not sure. Auto draft. Eze and Watkins probably did fine there. Auto draft probably was okay here. Eze, I personally had him at like the bottom of this tier of guys, but again, like I'm totally cool with him being in my first 2 picks here. It's really not obvious what to do with Eze either, though, because on the one hand, you lose Olise, which means, okay, that's just like a lot of assists and goals that Olise would have scored. Maybe Eze will be doing now. Obviously, this is like the leader of that attack. Well, whatever, maybe Mateta is the leader, but, Eze is the main creative force. But Crystal Palace might suck, like especially if they lose Gehi. Like they just might be a bad team now because of like Olise is just that influential of a player. If you notice, like they started off the season really bad last year, and they started off the season without Olise last year. It is also sort of this weird, like when Eze and Olise are both on the field. A lot of times it would be Eze kind of in this deeper role. Like when they're getting pushed back, they can't afford to have 3 guys all the way forward. Like Eze would be part of that sort of deeper block. So when they countered, they would use Eze, as the guy making the outlet pass, which means, maybe not a goal or assist on that kind of action. So I don't know. It's hard to say. Like, I'm guessing he's gonna get more goals, but maybe less assists. Then yeah, Watkins. That's perfectly fine. I was hoping to get Watkins at 204, but and Isak will do. Bruno, yeah, Man United are having some issues right now with injuries, and it's bad for Bruno because you want your team to be good so you score goals. But it's good for Bruno because like they have no center forward now. Like it's Xerxes who's kind of not an out and out center forward. Like I don't know. We'll see what his role will be, but I really fancied his skill set to be more of a second striker. But like I mean, is Bruno gonna like be a false nine if it's not Xerxes? Like I don't even know what they're gonna do without Højlund. And I don't know how long he's out. I don't think it's very long though. Bruno's gonna be fine. He has penalties, free kicks. He's just gonna get all their points. So yeah, again, be fine taking him at 105 even. Odegaard, not much to say. Sort of the same as Saka. Like, just gonna get a lot of assists and a lot of goals. Odegaard sort of like transition. Like, there was a phase of his career with Arsenal where he was just taking way too many shots. Like, he was being way too greedy after people were like, ooh, he needs to chip in with some goals. And he's like, okay, let me take all the shots. And his efficiency went way down because of that. But he's evolved since then. He's changed so many times as a player in his young career, so it's very exciting. Let's see. My guy Isak is just he's just so good. Like I don't know what to say about this guy. I wish Arsenal would sign him, but he would cost $1 trillion. I don't really have a strong feeling on Newcastle this season. Like I don't think it would be very different. So I'm not gonna say like, oh, they're gonna fall off, or oh, they're gonna, finish in the top 4. Like, yeah, no strong opinions one way or the other. So par for Isak would be finishing as the second or third striker overall. Here we go. Now it's interesting. De Bruyne. So Burnham gets Saka and De Bruyne, which on paper just looks so insane. But I'm really not sure about De Bruyne this season. Like, there's a reason he fell this far, and it's mainly because of that new haircut. Like, it looks so ass. I'm sorry. He instantly transformed into Unk status with that haircut. Well, yeah, he was injured last year, and people are afraid he's going to be injured this year. But as far as I know, he's not injured now, so, until he gets injured, this looks like an amazing deal. So I would say I like this team the best so far. Morgan Gibbs-White. I mean, I don't know. If Arsenal signed Morgan Gibbs-White, I would like him. If he was playing on Man City, he would be good. But he plays for Nottingham Forest, so there's no way he has enough output to justify being this high of a pick. Anthony Gordon is... I mean, yeah, this is probably where he belongs up here. He's just like a little bit streaky. I feel like in terms of his form, even if maybe his production is actually like he keeps like randomly chipping in, even though he runs hot in terms of like when people are actually talking about him and stuff. Doku Madison. Yeah, so as I alluded to earlier, I really think Doku's will run up the score on those contribution stats. And I mean, even without those, like Doku's ADP and price on FPL are too low, I think. Like what's not to like about Doku? He plays on the best team. He just does nothing but attack. Like every time he gets the ball, he's making an attempt at a dribble or a cross. So that's points. Nothing more to say. Madison is, yeah, moving parts with Spurs. So unclear how it's gonna work out with Solanke coming in. They do have a little bit of versatility in attack now. Like they've got a good problem with a potential rotation of their forward players, but Madison isn't a forward player, so there's good reason to think he's just going to start every game still. Like maybe he has less goals now, but he didn't have that many goals to begin with. And he's another where he should have some of those stats, some of those non-goal assist stats. Solanke is so underrated, it's criminal, and okay, maybe not that underrated because it was a decent transfer fee, but for all the people clowning on the transfer fee, like, no, you just like weren't paying attention last year because he was so good. It's a little bit like I don't know if he outperformed XG, but he had so many tap-ins last year, and so he checks the box in terms of the number because that's what people look at first. How many goals did he score? But really, where he checked the box was like just the all-around play. Like he just took it to another level last year. Okay, so like most of the goals, if you watch his highlights from last year, most of the goals were freaking tap-ins, but also there were a lot of like really good headers and a couple of just crazy touches, like chances that he completely worked himself. And you know, we've never seen this guy with a creator like Madison. So he could pop off. He could like I think like there is top 3 forward upside for this guy. I mean, yeah, like he's drafted as a 4th forward, so not that big of a bargain, but yeah, I think he belongs here. Maybe this is like a reach in terms of ADP, but it's a reach that I think is worth. Bruno Guimaraes is going to be a big beneficiary of all of these extra stats, but there's just no way in the 3rd round. Like, just try to find the next like box-to-box midfielder in this draft. Okay, Declan Rice, but I also think that was probably too high. These motherfuckers taking way too many box-to-box midfielders. Like, I didn't look at the full stats from last year, but even with all the extra stats, there's no way you can justify taking a player who plays that in that role in the 3rd round when there's all these really good, you know, wingers and basically strikers playing at the midfield position. Darwin Nunez and then Kai Havertz. So this might be a good time to just talk about the position scarcity situation because it's like slightly different. Okay, so like I mentioned, forwards do score less points than midfielders, like probably by a lot now. And I did mention it for Haaland, but you know, Haaland's one of those cases where like he's not going to get any of those extra points. This guy is just a complete fucking ghost in games. He'll have 4 touches and like 3 of them are goals. So he's not getting anything extra. But forward is a very scarce position, and you need to start one of them no matter what. And you'll notice, you know, Nunez, Havertz, these guys are not locked in starters. You know, huge question marks over these players. To be taking in the 3rd round, it's not great. You know, we'd love to have a locked in starter like, you know, Watkins instead of Nunez or Havertz. But there's just not a lot of like that's just where we're at in the 3rd round. Like there's just not good, you know, forwards who start every game and play for good teams. Like we just basically finished listing them. So you got to start. I've taken 2 of my top 3 picks for forwards. And I remember maybe we had one chat message about this in the thread when someone was like, "Why'd you take a forward? Midfielders score way more points." And they definitely do. But you're not trying to get points. You're trying to get more points than the next guy. And when the replacement level forward, after the 3rd round is, getting 6 goals per season, and you got to pull the trigger on these guys who you think are going to have some attacking output. It's like running backs in NFL. It just gets disgusting after the first 2 rounds. Just washed up guys on new teams. So yeah, that's just spiel about forwards in general. As for Nunez and Havertz in particular, so there's an extra element with these guys of the substitution system. I'm not sure how we're going to play with it, how it's going to affect our meta. But basically, I'm going to be up at 9 a.m. before the 10 a.m. kickoffs and see, oh, Havertz isn't in the lineup. Let me start someone else in my team. So it's basically the story with Nunez and Havertz. If you knew these guys were going to start every game, they would be 2nd rounders. Really productive players on the best teams. Havertz also low-key is effective in that left-sided midfield role where I don't think he's going to be playing that very much because they really want Rice to be in that spot, but he puts in a shift. This dude is tall, he's kind of strong, he throws his body around. He's gotten way better at that since joining Arsenal. He was not having a great first half of the season last year, and he just started. Well, first of all, they moved him to center forward, but he also just gets stuck in, and that will probably be good. Well, I'm guessing it'll be a net positive for the extra stats, but you also get penalized hella hard for yellow cards and red cards. And Kai Havertz had the most yellow cards on Arsenal. I think he had the most yellow cards, he was up there among players in the whole league. I think I read that stat. I was hoping I could let either Kudus or Bowen fall to me in a later round. You might notice my next 4 picks are all midfielders. And yeah, with Kudus and Bowen, yeah, I was kind of let me just get one of them, whichever one falls to me. I don't remember what the ADP was at this point, but I'm pretty sure I was no, his ADP is so low, I could definitely get Kudus in the 5th or 6th round or something. But I guess not. So yeah, I love both of those guys. So those 2 look good to me. So okay, auto draft ADP check. Porro is, he probably wouldn't be my next defender taken, but he's definitely up there. The guy just does so much. He just runs around like crazy and just gets involved in everything. So that one's fine. And as for Leicester, I'm sorry, I'm so ignorant about Leicester. So, I watched some highlights, but I'm just out on Leicester because I didn't do the homework. I didn't do the reading. So, yeah, nothing to share with you there. Okay, 4th round, we got Martinelli. Similar scoop with Havertz, where it's just oh, Martinelli's not starting, play someone else. And when he is starting, you got a really, really good option. I do think it is Trossard right now. However, that's slightly preferred. Now, it doesn't mean it's going to stay that way. And also, okay, this is an awkward point. So with guys like Trossard and Martinelli, you're pretty sure that both of them are going to sub on for each other. Probably every game, which is frustrating because now you don't get the auto sub thing, and this does work in our favor in this sense, but it works against us because it's just like, well, I made the decision to not play him because he didn't start, and then he comes on and scores a goal. You know, it's interesting. Like with the stats, the extra stats, they might just be a proxy for minutes. I'm not sure. Like obviously, it's going to vary a little bit, but you know, I really just playing the game of, oh, this guy played the full 90 minutes, therefore he stacked up an extra 7 points. You know, I'm not sure, and it also might be one of those where players have an outlier season in terms of interceptions or whatever, and then we all draw the wrong conclusions after the end of it. I'm not going to think about it too much. This will be the most thinking I do about that all year. Declan Rice, this guy should score more goals, and he got some goals last year. The only thing I'm worried about with Arsenal is they have not signed another midfielder. Really rolling in the season with Partey or Jorginho starting in that number 6. Like, you really would have hoped they actually got a good player in that position so that Rice can bomb on in the number 8 left-sided role. I'd say he should score more goals because he just gets so many looks at goal. And when this guy gets moving, like, he's fast, he bodies people off the ball. So he could easily just randomly have a 10-goal season this year. I don't think it's extremely likely, but it could happen. So whatever, I just ragged on the box-to-box midfielder thing, but this does seem fine. I'm sort of talking myself into it now. And Nkunku definitely had a lower ADP, so I was on the fence about should I wait, but then I looked at it again and I was just like, I'm pretty sure this is just the starting center forward for Chelsea. And that club is a shit show, but like they're probably going to score a lot of goals. And he's fit. We get a fit Nkunku to start a season. It's exciting. So I'm excited about that pick, even if it was maybe a reach. Gakpo had an amazing Euros. He was so good. And Narrative Merchant, he's got a Dutch head coach now, so he gets extra points. He just gets a 1.5 multiplier because of his head coach nationality lining up. But yeah, same scoop as Nunez and Havertz, right? Like it's just, I mean, right? Like you're just gonna copy paste exactly what I said for Nunez and Havertz for Gakpo, Trossard, Diaz, and Jota for my next 3 picks. Let's see, Robertson. Yeah, sure. This is the defenders run. So like, just to speak on the position scarcity thing again, when you're picking a defender this high in the draft, you really need it to be a difference maker, you know? A guy who you think is either going to like break out in terms of goal contribution or is just so locked in on a good team that they're just going to rack up clean sheets. It's kind of like Robertson, you know, in his heyday was basically up there with Trent, but I am just sort of worried about like Tsimikas being in the rotation. So exactly what I was talking about with the minutes proxy thing, like yeah, it could just be getting subbed out in the 60th minute when they're leading in games. So just a little worried about that for Robertson. But otherwise, he's still a premium defender that you have to take highly. Udogie, he was so good last year. Yeah, I mean, these Spurs wingbacks, you got to take them this high. They're just basically, they've got the craziest system, man. These wingbacks, like, when they're on the ball, they just, like, randomly pop up in, like, central attacking area. It's this guy is a freak. This manager. So he's gonna get more, goals and assists probably. 1 year of wits about him more. Like I don't think this guy is so stubborn too. Postecoglou, like stubborn within games, as we saw in that unbelievable Chelsea game last year. Just like the most hilarious shit I've ever seen. Where I think they were down to 10 men, and they were still like high press it. They were playing offsides trap at the halfway line. So like Postecoglou, we know he's stubborn. So for that reason, we don't think he's going to change his ways with regards to how far he pushes up the wingbacks. Garnacho is not a sexy player, but like we got to start taking the Manchester United players at some point. They look really good sometimes, like in transition. It's just that just Ten Hag just doesn't realize that he's a counterattack manager, and he tries to do this press, and it just like looks terrible. Like they always just do that half press, so the forwards get completely caught out of position, and suddenly, they get bypassed by one pass, and that next line, which is supposed to be pressing with them, is just 80 yards away, and they're outnumbered. But all that does not affect their goal output. And yeah, Garnacho is a big part of that. He's not sexy, but he's just very direct. He's gonna get a bunch of goals and assists. Maybe the ADP said it was a reach, but I feel like Garnacho's probably more locked in than, like the guys I've taken and I am taking in these next couple of rounds. And, Man United should probably be scoring a similar number of goals to those teams, but they'll be conceding a lot more. James Tarkowski, Everton Dyche ball is just absolute terrorism. But this guy racks up the clearances in the box. He just loves to be, talked about. He's just gonna get stuck in. He like I always like to say, like the better defenders don't get stats. It's kind of like playing cornerback in the NFL, where you had no pass breakups. Like, yeah, it's because I was playing, I locked up my guy. Like, I don't think James Tarkowski is a good player, but he's going to be good in fantasy in this format. So, this looks good to me. Munoz, I just don't think Crystal Palace is going to get clean sheets. And this is also, Guehi might leave the club. I think it was Newcastle that's in talks with him, and Newcastle has infinite money glitch. Munoz is, I think, the most picked defender in the FPL game, but he's also very cheap in that one. Yeah, too many variables with Crystal Palace. I steer clear in this draft, but it is a high risk, high reward situation, obviously. João Pedro, I'm guessing this was a reach again. I don't remember the ADP. Brighton has a lot of moving parts. I unfortunately didn't get to watch any preseason from them, so I don't know what the situation is with who's going to be the starter. Please don't say we're starting Danny Welbeck in 2024, Brighton. João Pedro is a little inconsistent with his performances, but he's just always showing up on the score sheet. And obviously a lot of that is just because he takes the penalties. But I don't even know if he's still the penalty taker. But again, that's where we're at in terms of the forwards. So, sure. Fifth round, sure. Van Dijk. Yeah. Nothing to really say here. He's I mean, I know the fullbacks are so much sexier. Van Dijk scores. This guy he's an amazing header of the ball. So why are we taking him so much lower than Trent Alexander-Arnold? They're on the same team. He's really 4 rounds worse than Trent. Like, I don't believe that. Trossard we talked about. Jesus he's been hot in preseason, and I do think he's going to start week 1, but he's going to be on a short leash. So like the first game, the first stinker he drops, I think he's going to get dropped from the team, from the starters. He's just like he's so good at so many things except finishing. You don't get points in this format for having a tight E hold up play. You don't get points for chesting the ball down in an acrobatic manner. But yeah, 5th round. Again, the forwards get so ugly so fast. Tony is not ugly though. Tony is sexy as shit. And I kind of just like looking at my picks, like I wish I had Tony. Could have changed it. One of my last 2 picks have been Tony, and maybe the Havertz or Isak pick could have been something like De Bruyne, James Madison, Doku, something like that. So that looks like a great value. Auto draft. Goalkeepers look like they don't benefit enough from the scoring. Like there's just not going to be a big difference between the top goalkeepers and the medium goalkeepers. So I really don't think you can justify taking a goalkeeper up here. But auto draft does not understand position scarcity, as we famously know. Yeah. What are we doing with Dwight McNeil? Kulusevski is another guy who's had a really good preseason, and like surely they got to carry that in to week 1. Not sure. Yeah, he's a decent little player, and he's in form right now. So why not in the 6th round? Nothing to not like there. What do we do with Rodri, man? Rodri, it's not a fluke at this point. He just scores a shit ton of goals. He's such a good striker of the ball. He's got such good instincts getting into the box. Like I'd love to say it's a fluke and he's just, outperforming XG in a fluky way, but it's just been too many years of this. Like every time I've done it like dozens of times over the past couple of years where I pick up Rodri in the waivers and it just feels so dumb. Like what am I doing with the defensive midfielder when there's like literal strikers that I could be playing in this position and getting the same amount of points, or rather getting way more points than a striker should. So yeah, Rodri's a special case. Like he's one of the only locked-in starters on Man City, and he just scores a lot of goals. Like Rodri went before Grealish, and even with the Oscar Bob injury, Grealish is right. Like Grealish is going to get on the field more, but I still bet he gets less goals than Rodri this season. Diaz we talked about. Like I guess I could just say a word about Trossard and Diaz as players, but I think you guys know what these guys are about. There's not much to say about them. They're pretty good players. Pereira, Fulham is it's a little rich for me. Pereira gets into the Brazil team sometimes, and I'm just like, what are we doing starting a Fulham midfielder in our Brazilian national team? Semenyo, the only question with Bournemouth is, are they going to sign a forward? Have they already signed a forward? Aren't they the team that went in for the Porto forward? I gotta look that up, but I'm not sure. Whenever you make a big sale this late in the window, it's always up in the air with regards to replacing the player. But you'd guess that the more tenured player in the squad does have first dibs at that role, so he could start the season hot and hold on to it. Bernardo Silva, I did think he was going to leave. There was so much talk about that, but he's still here. And I think he scored in that Community Shield. So that counts. Community Shield matters, folks. That's why I picked up Cole Palmer last year. Because I watched that game, and Cole Palmer was so good in that game. I was like, this guy looks really sharp, and the rest of the City players do not look sharp. Like who is this fucker? And they sold him. I was like, that's the new Phil Foden right there. And Pep was like, nah, man, off you go. Okay, where are we? How did Guardiola last this long? Like, look at all these defenders that went. Like, we just gotta look at the stats and just look at his last third of the season. Like, sure, maybe a lot of his goals were sort of fluky, but he was just on freakish good form at the last portion of the season. No reason to think that should really. I mean, whatever, it's going to regress to the mean, but we're talking about a Man City defender. You know, they're going to have a top 2 defense in the league. Grealish. What is the mean for Grealish? Is it, Aston Villa Grealish, or is it last year? I do think that Pep has killed this guy. Like, he's just turned him into a retained possession merchant, a fish for a free kick, and then pass it back and keep it moving. Like, the difference between him and Doku is just night and day. I know you get points for winning penalties, but I don't think you get points for winning a free kick. And that's like, it's like his whole game now is, getting the ball, 5-10 yards outside the box, having that close control and cutting it in when the guy goes in to make a challenge and they win a free kick outside the box. Like, it's sad. I loved Grealish, and now he's just freaking neutered. It sucks. Neto, I think we've not. I don't think we saw him in preseason. They signed him too late, but he's here now. He's so good. Like, he's so high quality. Whenever he's fit, he looks really good. Production, not as good, but he played for Wolves, who were working with center forward. Checks notes, literally nobody. So yeah, he should be getting some assists now. Chelsea has 1 trillion players, so we're not entirely sure who's going to be starting. But I assume we're going to have a little shaking out period in the first 3 weeks or so, and then the cream will rise to the top, or however that saying goes. It's going to be, I think every manager does this now, where it's like, all right, if you need to rotate, you rotate, but otherwise you really want a solid starting 11, especially when you don't have Champions League to worry about. Chelsea has some other competition to worry about, which is not the Champions League. Leon Bailey, this looks good to me. So Villa sold Diaby. They moved on real quick from that. So it's basically Bailey as the winger. I think it's going to be a sort of, whoever's on the left is going to be more the workhorse. Like, it's going to be asymmetric, and they're going to let it mainly be Bailey and Watkins on the break. Let's see, the left side wingers are Rogers and Philogene, two totally, like we don't really know what they're about in the Premier League. But I mean, Villa's got a formula now, man, and they pulled off one of the signings of the season with Onana. Like, that's a crazy, crazy signing, man. And Man United is just fucked because of that. I can't believe, Man United has dropped so many bags of money on so many dog shit players, and then they let Onana get to Aston Villa for whatever, 50 million euros. Just brain dead. I thought they were going in a new direction. Sad for them, but you love to see it. Trippier. I am definitely surprised Trippier made it this far. Just all these defenders went, and Trippier's still there. You get points for crosses in this. And yeah, you get points for key passes, points for assists. Not sure how many clean sheets Newcastle is going to be keeping. Like it's a weird team, Newcastle. They should get more clean sheets than they do. I just think they're happy to open the game up sometimes. So it's bad for the defenders' stats, but it's fine for Trippier's stats. Like, this guy is their main creative force on the ball. So looks good. 7th round. That looks like a steal. Jota we talked about. This guy's just always scores against Arsenal. He's just gets in the box and he's just there wherever the ball bounces. I hate that fucker. Mateta. Yeah, I'd have loved Mateta instead of a lot of these forwards that have been taken. Like, wouldn't I rather have Mateta than fucking Havertz? Mateta plays every game. Maybe his second half of the season was unsustainable. It definitely was unsustainable. But his regression to the mean, is going to be somewhere between his second half of the season and his average of, a goal every 5 games or whatever. So he's going to be good. Now, he doesn't have Elise. So Elise plus natural regression to the mean means he's not going to continue his run. But surely that still means a higher pick than 7.6. Like, I love Mateta, man. He's probably not going to start week 1 because he played 120 minutes in the Olympics finals after playing every 3 days or whatever. That guy needs a vacation. But should be happy keeping that guy on his bench. McAllister, box-to-box midfielder, doesn't really score. Maybe we'll get a little more points because of the he'll definitely get a lot of points. All these class of players, they should be getting, they should be benefiting from the scoring. I just still would rather have wingers or misclassified forwards. Yeah, just looking back to my picks, Son, Nkunku, Trossard, Diaz, Jota, every single one of these players should be classified as forward. If you play in a 4-3-3 and you're part of the 3 at the top, you should be a forward. It's that simple, man. It's just clearly a different phase of the play when you're in the midfield 3. Like, McAllister and Jota should not be the same position. Especially not in Nkunku. He's going to be center forward. So stupid, man. And Kai Havertz is going to he's going to be week 1, he's going to be playing in midfield. And he's the forward? What's so stupid? Dallo. Well, Man United just sold Wan-Bissaka, so he's a little more locked in now, because he can play both fullback spots. Yeah, they sold Wan-Bissaka and Shaw is injured. Blows my mind, that Wan-Bissaka deal. I don't think Wan-Bissaka was drafted, and I guess you don't get extra points for having extremely sexy slide tackles. Wan-Bissaka, the best slide tackler of our generation. Just generational talent slide tackler. And nothing else. Yeah, that was pretty talented. This looks fine. Yeah, not a lot of clean sheets here, but a lot of a decent amount of assists and key passes. Muniz, I if it was one player I wanted from Fulham, it was probably him, but I still probably don't want him. Or Smith Rowe, just because I love Smith Rowe, but Smith Rowe is not a starter probably. Oh, Mitoma. What happened to Mitoma, man? He was so hot. Everybody was talking about him. And then De Zerbi got exposed as a fraud. And Mitoma has completely fallen off the map. So let's hope he's back on the map, because he was so fun to watch when he was you know, having the most dribbles every week. Saliba, yeah, man, it's just like the same as Van Dijk basically. And 3 rounds later, he was the comp. You know, after 2 weeks, everyone's like, "Oh, we got the new Van Dijk," and he scores goals too. He scored in their last preseason game. So there you go. Tall dude. He can even kick the ball. And he's on the best defense. 8th round. Crazy. Um, I forgot I got Richarlison. Yeah, like comparing this to some other guys, like, God, I wish I had Mateta instead of Richarlison. Fuck, man. What am I doing with Richarlison? This guy stinks. Yeah, honestly, I don't know what I was thinking with Richarlison. This guy blows. Like, and Solanke probably takes this position. Fuck. Leicester player, I don't know. No comment. Ipswich player, no comment. Alright, let's just talk about a couple more guys. Xerxes is such a cool player. He's got the craziest dribbles and techniques and first touches. But those don't get you points in this format. Kind of like Jesus. He was not a prolific scorer at Bologna. And now he's moving to a league which is a lot better than Serie A. I was hoping that I could maybe get him in a late round because there's definitely a universe where he just like is the new starting center forward after that absolute giga stinker of a tournament from Højlund plus the injury. Could easily just lose his spot outright to Xerxes. Yeah, 8th round, that was fine. Fuck, I want Xerxes instead of Richarlison. Nicholas Jackson. So I made my bet that it would be Nkunku starting in the center forward position. And Nicholas Jackson is the butt of every joke because of his widely distributed missed sitters. Just absolute tap-ins that he somehow missed. But he had a good season, man. First half of the season, like, he was never not, like, heavily involved in the build-up, doing really good things off the ball, just making good runs, good timing, creates chances for himself, you know, and then still misses the chances when he gets them. But then the second half of the season, he started banging in goals, and that went under the radar. So 8th round, yeah, looks good to me. Embuemo, I thought he was a forward. They're always changing up the positions. It's like clearly we need to move to positionless fantasy. Now's the time. All flex positions except defenders and goalkeepers. Yeah, I don't know. He's not great in Embuemo, but he's just plays every game. Oh, Rashford 9th round. Oh my gosh, man, that's so brutal. That was a 9th round pick. God, I bet he was like a 2nd round pick last year. What a disgusting season he had, man. He was so terrible. And just mainly just because of how lazy he was. Just watching this guy off the ball just makes me sick. Like, please pretend like you care about this club. Um, 9th rounds, you can't go wrong with 9th round Marcus Rashford, though. Like, we know what kind of talent he has. So, who knows what's going on in his brain, but if he decides he wants to play the game of soccer again, then, he could be a really good player. So, 9th round, that looks really good. Yeah, I really like where this draft went. I mean, I kind of like all these picks. Yeah, maybe this is a good time. I mean, whatever. I can talk about like Füllkrug. Füllkrug is perfect blue collar striker for West Ham. Just perfect fit for that club. Um, I somehow got Ben White in the 9th round. Van de Ven in the 9th round also looks like a steal. whatever. Let's talk about team comps now. So, yeah, Evan ends up with Haaland, Doku, Gvardiol, Grealish, Diaz. So Team Man City is back in action and got good value on these guys too. Like it would be one thing if it was like the first 6 picks were all Man City guys, but he slots in Madison and Garnacho and Tarkovsky in there, and 8th round Nicholas Jackson. Like this team is fire. This team's really good now that I look at it. Yeah, we'll see where it ranks up after I look at all of them, but nothing wrong with that. I could do without. I don't think Manu is going to score in this format. Like the things he's good at probably don't even show up on this stat sheet. Let's see. We got Salah, Gordon, Solanke. Those Udoji, Munoz. Yeah, I really feel like these middle rounds, he's just started to pick up all of these steals. Like every one of these players, Neto, Xerxes, Rashford. Maybe you could have waited on Bernardo Silva. Whatever. It's a Man City player who's proven scorer, filling in for injuries now. Just an on Oscar Bob. Like Oscar Bob was definitely my bet this year for being the new Cole Palmer. So I'm so sad about his injury. He can still come back, but I'm just really bummed out about that one because that's a crazy talent. Oh yes, we like that team, but less than Team Man City. All right, Palmer, Gibbs White, Bruno Guimaraes, Robertson, João Pedro, Semenyo, Bailey. Yeah, I feel like especially just lacking a forward could be a problem for this team. Like if Cole Palmer keeps up his pace from last season, you could be fine. Cole Palmer could just carry this team. But the more I look at it, like it really looks like Cole Palmer's doing a lot of work for this team. Yeah, man, I just hate those the second and third picks. Um, did I have anything else to say about this one? Oh, we got Nico Williams. Nico Williams transferred to Nottingham Forest. What a steal! 11th round, amazing. Um, Saka, De Bruyne, Nunez, Gakpo, Van Dijk. Got a late Trippier. We got the full crew. Like I want full crew instead of Richarlison. Fuck, bro. Yeah, I love it. He's like got all the Liverpool players. This is Team Liverpool. Alisson, goalkeeper, plus Van Dijk, plus Nunez, Gakpo. You know the advantage of having Nunez and Gakpo is you just because you have both of them, you're just sort of almost guaranteed a way into that forward line every week. Obviously, there's opportunity cost, so maybe you pick up a guaranteed starter and then you just have 2 guaranteed starters. But it seems to make sense to have both of them. I mean, I don't know. Okay, so just a little tangent here. I feel like the mistake people make in this format, but then also in like fantasy football in general, is to think that you only have one opponent. And yes, you go onto the website and then you see you have one opponent and you have to beat that opponent to win the week. But you have you have 7 opponents. You're trying to be the best team out of 8 teams. You're not trying to be 1% better than your opponent. You're trying to have a massive advantage. So the consequence of that is that you really need to shoot for upside. And like a lot of people talk, it's like they say that word upside and they just sort of have that fill in to just mean, oh, just get a good player. Upside, good, means the same thing. When they don't. When we talk about upside, we're really talking about like the tail of the distribution. We're not talking about, the big hump of the distribution. We're not talking about like the average outcome or the most likely outcome. We're talking about the rare outcome that has a huge benefit. So like just applying that to the Nunez Gakpo, forward situation, what would you rather have? An insurance policy? Like, oh, if this guy doesn't start, then the other guy starts. And that's not exactly what's going on here, but this is just sort of a launch pad for this diatribe. No, you wanna shoot for the potential to have multiple starters, to have multiple guys go off, and just transitioning to talking to about my team, like that's why I really love the defenders stack, having Ben White and Gabriel and David Raya, because like again, you could think of it as like when you play these games, it's kind of like you're playing in daily fantasy instead of playing a head-to-head daily fantasy. Like you're playing the tournament game versus all the players instead of just you got to beat the one guy. Because again, you got to be the best in the league, not just slightly better. So how do you achieve that? By high rolling. Wait, Arsenal's not going to get a clean sheet every week, but what are the paths for me to win the league? One of those paths is for Arsenal to get a shit ton of clean sheets. And every one of those clean sheets, I have a triple clean sheet. So I'm a strong believer in the defender stack. So when I look at my team and then Alisson plus Van Dijk, yeah, I'm all about that. I really think that's the way to go. Yeah, so our next team here. I mean, I could just talk about my team for a second, but I kind of gave you the scoop. And I mean, just like looking at my first 8 picks, like it just so happens that I tried to pick only from like the top teams. But it didn't really work out. Like I have Isak, I have Nkunku. Those teams suck. That's generally what I try to do, but whatever. If you like follow some hard rule like that, you're just gonna miss out on deals. Yeah, Foden, Odegaard, Kudus. That looks like such a good start. I love those first 3 picks. Foden is just a deal, 6th pick, and then. Well, I like Kudus. Maybe you could have gotten a bigger name player at 3rd. Yeah, like I said, you probably could have waited on that. And his forwards, like I don't know, on paper that looks so good to me. Jesus and Mateta in mid-round picks, like that just seems like exactly where you want those guys. And then your midfielders do the hard lifting. Midfielders score more points. We've been over this. And then his defense is sort of a mix, but it's a mix of shit you want. So I like it. It's a buzzsaw I don't like, but whatever, 10th round. And we got Team Jerry, Team Trent. Trent, Bruno, Bowen, Martinelli, Tony. He makes up for the Trent pick. Like, he gets good value on so many of these other picks. So, I'll allow it. Yeah, Pickford, the next goalkeeper taken. Like, I think Pickford's so much better than Jose Sa. So, unfortunate auto draft. Yeah, man, looks fine. You just start Tony every week. Is your one striker. Start 5 midfielders. Banger team. And let's see how this auto draft shaked out. So Sa, yeah, don't like that. And we're starting. We got Watkins in our forward slot. So the position scarcity, we're good. We've got a top tier defender in Porro. We've got a mid tier defender in Dallo. We've got a top tier midfielder in Eze. Obviously, he has no depth to his team. I mean, I love Madueke in the 9th round. Maybe he's not the starter right now, but I swear he's so underrated. So much better than Mudryk, for instance. Yeah, I mean, the position he's latest in is midfield, and that's the easiest position to pick up guys off the waiver wire. So, yeah, auto draft is unfortunate, but could be way worse. Could be way worse. So, to recap, power rank the teams, huh? Let's start from the bottom. I'm gonna say team shuffle auto draft. you're unfortunately going to be at the bottom, but not by a lot, because I hate this Cole Palmer team. I fear there are some good picks in here, but not. Yeah, just like everything after Cole Palmer and before Bailey, I'm not a big fan of. So let's put those two at the bottom. Then, oh man, the rest of these teams are good. I guess I'll say Jerry's team is next in the bottom. But like that team could be really good for reasons I already said. Then, Then yeah, we can go. Then it's Brett's team, solid team. Then the Saka team. Then the Holland team. And then the Foden team. And then my team. My team is the best. But I think those top three teams are all like my team is just barely better, is what I'm going to say. Because those top three teams are really good. And I just might be coping for the fact that we're going to reach week 3 and none of my middle round picks have started a game. Like in Nkunku, Trossard, Diaz, Jota, like none of them are going to have started a game. Maybe even Havertz. Imagine that. Oh my god. That is a world we could live in. Like I could have like 2 starters my first 7 picks. Because yeah. No, the more I think about it, no, my team sucks compared to the Holland and Foden teams. These teams are so good. Alright, that's my thoughts. Congratulations to you if you've sat through this. And yeah, I don't think there's any terrible teams, and I think at the top it's really close as well. So pending any crazy transfers, crazy injuries, it looks like it's going to be a competitive league. We've had non-competitive leagues in the past, and I really don't think this is going to be one of them, unless one of these like random waiver wire guys goes crazy like Cole Palmer or something. So good luck, everyone. Have fun. Good luck Friday and beyond.